Hey, 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 what do you say? I don't know why I just opened with that. So, before we get into today's episode where we discuss Space Jam, we just wanted to give a little quick intro for our guests, Aaron Burleson and Liz Franco. Aaron Burleson and I are Sundance Fellows. We met at the Sundance New Voices Lab last year. He is an extremely talented writer and actor. He has been featured on Coverfly most recently, and we'll have some links to that in the bio of this episode. Liz works for CNN Films. She helped bring things to the screen like United Shades of America, which is W. Kamau Bell's show, airing on Sundays on CNN. She also is a 2020 Women in Film Insight Fellow, and we'll have a link to that article as well. In our bio. And the reason we brought them on for Space Jam is because they are both massive basketball fans, both LA Lakers fans throughout their lives from childhood. But they still loved Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was their guy growing up, and he was the one that introduced them to basketball. So we thought it was appropriate to bring them on for Space Jam.
And also, I make an exit about halfway through this episode, like the complete pile of cum that I am. So depending on how you feel about me, you'll either be thrilled or horribly disappointed. Enjoy. Someone explained to me Bill Murray's hat and also that scene where the doctor asked Patrick Ewing, hey, other than basketball, how's that dick working for you?
Yeah, right.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, God, yes. Welcome back to Is It Still Good? The show with two grown-up film students who hate growing up. I'm Bear Kennedy. I'm stuck in Boston still. So go fuck yourselves, fuck your mother, get the microprocessors. Joining me as always,
Andrew Carter, Los Angeles, still stuck here, not going anywhere. We have two very special guests today, my friends Aaron Burleson and Liz Franco. They are joining us to talk about Space Jam. And for those of you that don't know, this is It Still Good? This is the show where we look back at things from our past, from our childhood that we once loved, we once couldn't live without. And now we see as 30-year-olds, 30-plus-year-olds, almost 40. No, I'm kidding.
This pandemic has aged us.
Yeah, this pandemic has aged us. And we look back on things with these rose-tinted glasses and see if they really were just rose-tinted glasses or if they are still fantastic. And we're here to discuss Space Jam. Now, Aaron and Liz, what was your earliest history with the movie? Do you remember seeing it in theaters? Did you skip theaters and see it on video? Where did the history with Space Jam start with you guys?
I feel like your history is going to be a little more extensive, so I'll go. I didn't watch it in theaters, unfortunately. I'm kind of mad that my parents didn't take us to see it. That would have been pretty cool. But I do remember watching it at home, being like, 6 or 7 years old. Yeah. Don't remember a lot of the details other than thinking it was so cool. Obviously, Michael, the Looney Tunes, basketball, which, I later went on to play, maybe inspired by Space Jam. I don't know. But yeah, I think the earliest memories of it are, just like these warm feelings, and the music, I think, is one of the things that I kept, kind of coming back to even more so than the movie. Soundtrack is pretty epic. So that I definitely have memories of listening to those songs on repeat. Some of those songs are by artists who I will not name, but yeah.
The biggest one.
You mean the big one on there?
Yeah. The big one,
the opener?
Yeah, the song that defined my childhood. Great. Yeah.
The opener and the almost closer.
Yeah, right? In every church in America.
Oh,
yeah.
Boy.
So that's my earliest memory. In a nutshell.
That's great. Aaron, What about you?
It was 1996.
Oh, God.
Set the scene.
It was during the Eastern Conference Finals, semifinals, where the Bulls were playing, the Hornets that year or somewhere, but they played clips of this. And that was when Jordan got his first of the second, three-peat. And so I just remember, who has a movie come out in the middle of the playoffs? Michael Jeffrey Jordan does. And so
the middle name. You dropped the middle name.
Come on, man. We just got off of the Last Dance and everything. My Jordan nostalgia is at all times high.
I still need to watch The Last Dance.
Yeah.
I am fucking up. Well,
also haven't seen it, so yeah.
Yeah.
I would bear. Damn, I would.
Totally fine.
Yeah, and in a way,
It's not going anywhere.
It's on Netflix now.
and it's great. Don't be partial, but I feel like this is in a way a compliment piece to that. But I saw it in the theaters when it came out with my mom, who's a big Michael Jordan fan, like I am. And yeah, I mean, you just feel like this sense of excitement for something, and you can go back to school and talk to your friends about. And that was like that thing with me. I always wanted to go see a movie first because you would have the opportunity to at least talk about it with your friends or not. You wouldn't be left out of the conversations. And I remember this being one of those examples. I remember like Lola Bunny being a big deal back in the day as well, you know, female representation, even if it's hypersexualized for this movie.
It's a rabbit though. Like, are you gonna fuck the rabbit? Like,
I hope not.
I hope not. But those were executive conversations.
Right now, Aaron just goes, I mean, I would. Liz stares at him like, what?
Yeah, doghouse tonight. But no, I mean, but what's just, again, it's a showcase for the Looney Tunes also. Everyone talks about it being Michael Jordan's piece. I think you get a lot of great stuff from the Looney Tune characters as well. And I haven't really seen them all together in a film before. And so I thought that was pretty unique about this. Just as a kid, you know, like all these different people. I had one of the jerseys back in the day. Like,
yeah, me too. I think I had Bugs. I think I might have had actually MJs. I don't know. I think I had MJs.
Yeah. Like it was like, who were you?
Everyone had.
According to your Space Jam jersey too. Like I was Daffy. You know what I mean? Who was like a swingman, you know, and on the court, swingman on the court. But but it was just I remember it being a very fun time.
I had the video game.
Yeah,
I remember that pretty good.
Yeah. The webpage wasn't either.
Did you have it on Sega?
Was it Sega?
You have a
Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo. Okay.
Yeah. Probably both consoles.
Yeah.
So Aaron, did you see it opening weekend?
I think I did see it opening. I saw that Sunday opening weekend. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Was Sunday would you like see movies on Sundays, or was it just like a specific member?
I think just get it in before Monday, before everyone starts talking about it. And there were no spoiler, spoiler alert, back in the day. People would just come out and like.
I always think about that. Like, imagine being a kid now and like being like a 10-year-old on Twitter or something.
Oh my God.
And like having to deal with spoilers. Like, that's bizarre. Like, I couldn't imagine. Like, if I had to deal with spoilers as a young, 10-year-old, I would lose my mind.
Right.
And if things got ruined, that would suck. I mean, it sucks now as a 30-year-old man.
I don't believe in spoilers, so I don't care. And
What?
I think, don't
like,
believe
it'll
in
bother
them.
you.
Yeah, straight up. Like, I know other people are sensitive about them, but I personally don't care. It does not affect my enjoyment of anything. There's only so many plots you can have, in a given story. So if you're like really into movies or just like storytelling in general, you shouldn't be that offended to know what's going to happen. Like in a good story, it shouldn't be a huge fucking surprise how it ends. It should be set up in a way to resolve. That's so fair. If you're that upset that like the surprise element is removed for you, it's probably not that good of a thing to begin with. And secondly, grow up and learn how to consume stuff. There's not that many surprising things. Like, stories should resolve. That's why you can, make a bad life decision and go to film school like we did. They'll just break that down for you.
Right.
So I can get spoiled all day long. I don't care. So hopefully all these kids will be coming around to my point of view now that it's just ubiquitous.
Yeah. No, I think.
But what about something like the Sixth Sense?
The Sixth Sense is a good movie because it invites different viewings of the film once you know the spoiler. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that feeling of getting the rug pulled out from under you is nice, but that feeling is as fleeting as it gets. Like, it's interesting, but that's not what makes that a good movie.
It was a time taken before to set all that up and the layering. Yeah,
if your movie really depends on just how a twist hits late, it sucks.
Well, I think that just goes to speak to maybe my own sense of I do have ownership over my film experience. Like, when I go see something, I want to be in there, because back in the day, I used to go to the movies a lot too. And so that was something of an experience when going into the theater. The stakes are so high already. You got the popcorn. You got to
time commitment too.
Yeah, time commitment,
money commitment,
financial commitment.
It is.
My siblings too coming in, and get my parents on a good day.
Yeah.
But so the stakes were high, But honestly, back in the day too, like there weren't really big movies being spoiled like that. You know what I mean? Because we weren't having, I am your father moments in the 1990s growing up.
The Crying Game, which I'm gonna just bring up every show. I'm gonna talk about the Crying Game.
And if we're our age watching the Crying Game, that's an issue. But that was definitely the energy around the time. And I think, you're right though. It has got out of hand where people were just like, I've heard, just really horror stories about people being attacked because they inadvertently spoiled something non-important to the film. And
which is out of line. But actually, you make a great point about owning your own experience of seeing it. That's actually a good point. I'm not going to start caring about spoilers, but I respect that's where you're coming from. Like, you're taking the time out of doing it. You don't want to fuck it up.
Yeah. But game recognizes game as far as like making films is, as far as that's concerned, there's only, you're right, finite many ways to make whatever you're going to make and execute it. So
like you might be pissed as a kid if Space Jam gets spoiled for you, but at no point during this film are you ever going to think that Michael Jordan's going to lose to the
no
like the ultimate outcome, it shouldn't, like, that's not that surprising.
I feel like the 90s, on top of the fact that I guess spoilers aren't really a thing. I mean, as a kid, I don't know about you all, but like I wasn't reading reviews. The internet wasn't that accessible, right? So on top of the 90s already feeling like this like age of innocence, like super, perfect time in our lives for some of us where, things were just good. I think we all feel nostalgic for it. There also just were elements that I think now when we consume films, sure, you can avoid the spoilers if that matters to you. And I tend to not want to read critiques until afterwards, because I like to form my own, because I'm like my own critic. And read and be like, oh, see, I agree, I disagree. But even as a kid, like none of that shit mattered. So you were just like, it was the movie. How do you feel when you leave?
Right.
So it's definitely a different way of watching films.
Wow,
that's a great point. Yeah, and it's like what you just said makes me wonder what if we were all the ages we are now in the 90s? Like, what would that be like?
Oh,
because like
I'd be insufferable. I'm already insufferable. It'd be so much worse in the 90s.
Yeah, he's a terrible man.
Like, I'm going to get more curmudgeon-y if I transplant myself back like 25 years.
No, but I think Liz brings up such an interesting point about, like, I equate that, like, not reading. Well, actually, I did read reviews in the paper, like Roger Ebert, when I was like a young kid. Like, but it was always on the paper. I never read stuff online until like the early 2000s. But like, I remember being a young kid, like, and equating not having the internet and not having spoilers with being a child. But imagine being an adult and having those same things. Like, I wonder how that would affect us.
Right. Yeah. Like, did they have that same sort of sense of joy and innocence going into these films?
Right.
Is that something you just lose with age? And obviously, you guys went to film school. That definitely like fucks up any joy, right?
100%. Yeah.
100%. I mean, we
to the point where you're just like, oh, okay,
yeah. And that's something that you can't, like, especially with going to film school. What happens, I think, is the people that, they go in with a love of movies and wanting to make movies, and what can happen. I mean, you can go in any direction, honestly. I mean, Bear works in pharmaceuticals, and I'm still out here like chasing this pathetic, horrible dream that's destroying my life and killing me. No, you listen to me. No, you listen to me, Sundance.
We're co-fellows, man. We're co-fellows. We're like Sundance co-fellows.
Yeah. That is one thing I will say. I never thought anything like that would ever happen for me, and the fact that it has, like, that is, and I'm sure you feel the same way, Aaron. Like, that is very, very fucking cool.
It goes into the obituary for sure, but
yeah, right. No, it does.
I feel like it's possible for something to get simultaneously like demystified, and you sort of lose that like wonder, but at the same time your appreciation grows because you understand everything that goes into every single project. And I feel like Aaron does a better job of this than I do, but I'll have strong reactions to things, and I'll be like, man, I just can't get over this. Like, I don't like it. And I feel like you're always like, well, it took a whole village to make it, and it's like so much work, and
yeah.
I feel like you're just more empathetic in that sense. And I'm still kind of like, I mean, come on. Like, you guys have the money, you have the resources, and this is what we got. Like, I don't know.
I see both sides.
Yeah, Spike Lee says it it takes a lot of hard work to make a crappy movie. Like a crappy movie, it still takes a whole lot of work, right?
Yeah.
So, and who knows who views a piece as good as or not. We'll get into it with Space Jam, but like a lot of resources went into this piece, and still to this day, there's some issues that you have with the plot and the choices, and then you say, "Oh, it's Looney Tunes." So, what kind of critical eye should I be applying to this as far as like logic and reasoning?
Yeah.
And why are the stakes so high here at this moment? But yeah.
No, that's a great point, and that's a great segue into a little bit of like Space Jam talk. You know, like in terms of the history of it. Like, I'm sure you guys all know this all started because of a commercial in 1992.
Yes. With
Bugs and Michael Jordan. Full disclosure, I had no idea that it was based on a commercial until I was doing research on the movie. Yeah. I just thought I thought someone was just like, Michael Jordan, Looney Tunes, let's do it. Because when the commercial came out, I was like 3 or 4, so I don't remember seeing it. I just
you just pictured like Robert Evans, Kid Notorious, just Looney Tunes.
Yeah,
Jordan, let's go.
I picture a big studio head with a cigar, being like, we got Michael Jordan, we got the Looney Tunes, we got branded partnerships with Target and Burger King. It's gonna be the best summer of your life.
Right?
Like talking to some intern like who's gonna be working on the movie, but like. So it's based. It was inspired by that commercial, also directed by Joe Pytka, the same director who made Space Jam. What's interesting is that, like, reading a little bit about the making of the movie, it was not an easy film to make at all, and you can see that when you watch it. You're like, wow.
Well, a big tell is that 40% of the runtime is the end credits. Like, I liked it. There's a lot of good. It's a nice musical montage, but those credits go on forever.
They do.
Yeah.
And then it also has a credit scene to begin with that's pretty
long.
You're right. Where Bugs Bunny is second billed.
Yeah.
Not the voice actor, the character.
The character.
Yeah.
Who gets the royalties? You know.
I don't know.
They do have a joke in Space Jam about royalties, which I thought was funny.
A lot of commentary, right, about their own intellectual property, but they still get residuals or something.
Right. Like you see any money from that? Like, no, we got to get new agents. Yeah.
And I saw things that like a kid like myself watching that would have flown right over my head. What are agents? What are residuals? What are they?
Yeah, exactly.
Jim Rome is in this movie for 30 seconds, and he posted something on his Twitter from a couple years ago where he got a $6 check for residuals for Space Jam.
Wow.
This is within the last couple years.
Yeah, that's how it works. I was in Super Troopers 2 for probably 6 seconds, and I've made a total probably like, and this is over like years. So, and it comes in installments, probably a total of like $1,100. So not terrible.
That is far more than I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to be like $16.99.
Well, look,
I made $12.
The first like 2 or 3 checks were like in the $300 range, which was awesome. Wow. But then I've gotten some that are like $42. And then one that was like $14. But then I got another one that was like $170. So it's like, you know, it's all about like what the movie is licensed to, you know, like whether like pay cable or rentals or something, but that's part of the SAG rules.
I have a huge question that I was not able to answer in my research. Did Michael Jordan have to join SAG for this production?
Oh,
I couldn't find that out.
I couldn't find it. I was searching everything possible.
It depends on what, because I think this film had enough live action that I think it would qualify.
That's what I would think too, but I couldn't find any record of it, and like no one. I don't know if that's just a boring question that I'm personally interested in, but no one's ever asked that like in an interview.
No, I think it's it's a fascinating question. Aaron, when you say live action, do you mean like enough other SAG actors?
Yes, because Bill Murray's in here too.
Yeah,
right.
And
Wayne Knight.
Wayne Knight's doing some heavy lifting in this film.
So is Patricia Heaton.
Yeah,
and Dan Castellaneta.
He's
at the Knicks game.
A lot of voice
the Knicks game.
But
also the guy who plays Michael's dad. Tom Barry.
Yes.
Love that actor.
Film. He's like that. I know that black dad. Like he's in so many films as the black dad.
So is the Little Michael.
And Little Michael, Brandon Hammond, who's in Soul Food.
Oh yeah.
And
I love that Little Michael drills like 2 free throws, and his dad is like, holy shit, you're going to the NBA.
I'm telling you,
So quick.
everything he's gonna do in his career too. Like just so clairvoyant at the age of 10 and everything.
Yeah, he just drills 2 of them. The guy's like, oh, let's hammer these checks, baby.
Yeah, he's like, you're getting pretty good at that, son. And I also love the, he's like, going to North Carolina, and he's like, that's fine school, real fine school, get you first class education. Like, and he's like, I love it. I love because it's like, I know that, and I know that's the point of the story, but the kid is just saying everything that Michael Jordan ended up doing.
Yeah.
But I noticed, did you guys notice in the opening credits, there was a fan, or like a shot of a fan holding a sign, Michael for president?
Yes.
And it just made me wonder, and this might be a silly question too. How do you guys think, let's say hypothetically Michael Jordan ran for president, how do you think he would have done considering, like what the fucking political game has become?
After this film or in the most recent election?
That's a good question. I think the only way for this question to make sense is probably for it to be like after the film, like around his height.
I mean, he it was at the height of his powers after this film, returning to the NBA.
Yeah.
So, assuming he would leave the NBA to pursue the presidency, I mean, that would have been an historic run. He would have beat Obama to the pitch of first black president. And I mean, I grew up in Cleveland rooting for the Cavaliers, so personally I hated Michael Jordan, but I might be the only guy who felt that way. I mean, it seems to be universally loved. Detroit. Yeah, people in Detroit as well. Solidarity.
Yeah, New York Knicks fans are off and on, but
I think, I mean, my like quick answer to that question, it's like, I'm like struggling to even imagine, because I'm like, wow, it feels like, such a different world back then. But I mean, obviously you don't need to see The Last Dance to get this, but Michael is as apolitical as they get.
Yeah.
And I think we're obviously with athletes taking stances, but I'm just like, for him to run for president, he actually have to take some stances and actually
he's like vaguely pro-union maybe because he's in the NBA.
But in terms of like, any like big political stances, like what party would he run for? I don't know, because it kind of goes against this idea that, that he wants to be universal and he wants everyone to buy Jordans and he wants to be everybody's favorite guy. So
right.
I don't think that would ever be in his DNA to run for office.
It's kind of fun to imagine.
I know it is fun to imagine.
I did a paper on him in college in my Afro-Am class about the apolitical nature of star athletes, and he was someone who represented a very pivotal time as far as like athletes focusing more on their economic ascension and not trying to state any sort of political purpose or shed any light on any sort of social issues. And he was at the forefront of that because he saw. Well, look at his brand. Look at the Jordan brand. Look at what we're talking about. He's a black man making a film with Bugs Bunny in the 1990s while playing basketball at the height of his level. It's absurd, and I think he had to have a apolitical sort of disposition in order to achieve that sort of success.
Right, and and you could argue that by him doing that and just like blazing that trail, it opened up the doors for a LeBron to come through and be a great athlete, but also be outspoken about things that he believes in. But I think anyway, Michael is such a fascinating character and case study as a person, aside from Space Jam.
Which is one of the issues I have with this movie. I just felt like he was kind of boxed in with his own acting. When you watch Last Dance, and you even see that behind the scenes footage of him that they have for the documentary, you see this person who's so three-dimensional and just coming off the camera with so much personality and competitive fervor and just a trash talker. And I just felt like this movie couldn't have none of that. Like it was so sterilized. I think that he's kind of seems comatose, because if you're looking at things from the point of view as Michael Jordan, the character in this movie, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, he takes it very well.
He takes he takes the sheer absurdity of this whole entire premise so well. Just like, okay, they're forcing you to work for them, and so y'all kidnap me. So the whole cycle of violence is just like all over. Everybody's getting kidnapped into slavery in this movie, and like
that's true. There's a lot of threats of slavery in this movie.
It's a lot of
very direct threats about it. Yeah.
And so I mean, that goes. I mean, we're going into the weeds here, but that reminds me of a book called $40 Million Slaves by William C. Roden that I researched for that apolitical athlete book. And there is something around they're still earning obscene amounts of money, but they are still in a way in bondage to, you know, the owners of the teams that they play for. We call them owners in a way. And
Right.
it just, you know, that still comes to me as I watch this show. And they even have Jordan, I think, in shackles playing, which is that's a very powerful image that you're putting.
Yeah, it's the montage when he's like, "You'll sign autographs all day," and
and it's for some reason it is in an animation style that is completely left field when compared to the rest.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Very scary, very sort of ominous, and you just see like one of your favorite people, Michael Jordan, in shackles. Like, whoa, Danny DeVito, come on, man, like just calm down.
It's fucked up.
When we rewatched it together, I think we rewatched it recently, and then the time before that, I actually watched it on a plane, and it was fun watching it with you because we were like having commentary back and forth. But when that particular sequence happened, Aaron is like, "Oh my God, do you think that's metaphorical?" And I was like, "Yes, it's metaphorical, but I don't know that they knew that it was metaphorical." They had that intention, but sure, like we might be reading into this more than they.
I'm going into
they
the
did.
weeds here.
No, I think you guys are 100% right. You know, to see someone as big as Michael Jordan he's not a bad actor. He's just being Michael Jordan. It's like he's naturally
playing the straight man. He's playing the straight man, which is probably a good call to not get a ton of range out of a guy who's an emotional athlete. So I didn't think that was a bad choice, but yeah, he comes off as stiff for sure.
Yeah, he comes off as a little too stoic, especially with like going into a golf hole and waking up in Looney Tunes. Like he's
unbelievably accepting of that.
Fuck out. I would be having a panic attack.
He in this world of this movie, he knows Bugs Bunny. Like he's aware of him. He's like, oh, it's Bugs Bunny, and then later he refers to him as his friend. So
and let me tell you something else. And maybe this is a little bit more easy to buy because they're younger, but like his kids are fine with it too. Here you go, Bugs. Like, it's like, whoa, what? Like, wouldn't you be like shitting in your pants if a fucking two-dimensional animated character?
Where's Dad again? He's helping. Okay, can I see some footage of this or something? Like even the oldest son is like, okay.
Yeah, like they're not even worried. Oh, where's Dad? It's where's Dad? Oh, he'll come back. And then like during the day, where is he?
Yeah.
You know? Like what about his wife and his kids? Like, where's Daddy? I mean, I guess they set up that he's like in a hotel room, so he's like in an away game or something. Yeah. Which I gotta say, one part that did crack me up was Wayne Knight's endorsement line. Like, put on your Hanes, lace up your Nikes, grab your Wheaties and your Gatorade, and we'll get a big back on the way to the ballpark. Like,
he got them all in there, right?
Like and it actually like makes sense in context of what he's saying.
Oh man, had to take nothing out because
it was great.
It was serving all of those brands.
Right.
I mean,
so while we're sorry, go ahead.
I was like, just like the shoe porn in here too. Like you have the Jordans in there, like the Space Jam Jordans, the 12s, where they just became its own iconic shoe. In particular, it's like every brand you can name was in here, from Looney Tunes to the NBA. They had the NBA license as well, which is that's an ask, but Jordan.
Aaron and Liz, what did you think watching it this time versus as you were kids?
Well, seeing that I have literally like 4 pages of notes that I prepared for you guys.
I don't think we were taking notes when we were kids.
I think I'm a little more critical at this stage.
Just a little bit. Lots of questions. I think, I think as an adult, you are just more cynical and obviously you know a little more. And you're just like, oh yeah, this is a fucking glorified commercial at the end of the day. And there's a lot of holes in the plot. And there's a lot of, it's really asking you to suspend a lot of disbelief. Obviously, it's a kid's film, but even then, I think they really kind of, they phoned it in on some of these parts because they were just like, kids are just going to be here for the cartoons. They're not going to be dissecting this, but they're
not going to question it.
I think, and overall as a film, right, I think it is layered with some metaphors in there, and I think it has a very busy first act where there's so much happening.
I was thinking, I even wrote down, like, how the fuck do they get to basketball here?
Yeah, right. She said the same thing. Like,
how did it we get there? And Aaron was like, well, they saw, like Bugs saw that they're small, and Bugs, I guess, likes to hoop, and so that was his like instinct.
Yeah.
So that's a good question. Also, like, how do we get from Michael to fucking Moron Mountain? Like, what are and Moron Mountain itself, like that? What is Moron?
What
Mountain?
is it? And
why would you go there?
Yeah, why would you go there? And not only that, how are the Looney Tunes gonna help save Moron Mountain?
And the jam does not take place in space. There is very little space for it being in the title.
I read this thing, speaking of Space Jam being the title, I read this part of trivia that was before it was called Space Jam, someone asked an assistant in a meeting asked, like in a creative marketing meeting, like, so where are we at with the title? And someone said, it's up in the air. And she literally thought that the title was up in the air. So she sent out a memo with everyone saying, like, look out for Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan in Up in the Air, November 1996 or whatever. And people were like, whoa, what? And they're like running around the studio a lot, like recalling the memo. Like, that's not the title, because she just heard somebody say that. But it just made me think, because George Clooney was in that movie, Up in the Air.
Oh, that's that movie. What am I thinking of? The Kevin Bacon basketball one.
That's
the Air Up There. Sorry,
the Air Up There. Yeah. What's funny is Space Jam, produced by Ivan Reitman, Up in the Air, directed by his son Jason Reitman.
Wow.
Interesting.
Oh, I also, in reading trivia, saw that the deal for this came about in the air on a plane. So there's a lot of air action.
Yeah, Ivan Reitman.
Jordans, air when you're going to the hoop. Like, there's a lot of air.
Yeah. I will say I liked a lot of the meta jokes of, like, when Daffy's like, hey, Mr. Murray, how'd you get here? And he's like, I'm friends with the producer. Teamster dropped me off.
Literally.
I said out loud, why the fuck is Bill Murray in this? And then Bill Murray on screen answers that question. Like the next moment. I was like, holy shit, I got to cool it on the edibles.
Here's the thing, though. Bill Murray, that for me, I mean, this ranks up there as one of my all-time favorite Murray performances because of just the fact he shows up and he's just himself and he's so funny. And he just fits in with this absurd universe, and he's just playing it all sort of like deadpan too in a way. It's like, this is what I do, here. He's
hilarious.
He really wants the ball, so it's just. Yeah.
This reminded me of his performance in Zombieland, which I thought was also great. So we're at the point now where we're starting to get to like verdicts and everything. Bear, what do you know? I feel like you haven't said it quite as much. So where are you at with it, and what are you thinking? And by the way, did you see this as a kid in theaters?
Saw it as a kid. Definitely saw it in the theater. There's no way I didn't see this in the theater. There was a Thanksgiving release, '96. I was 8 years old. Yeah, had to have seen this in the theater. Definitely watched it on VHS. Definitely had the soundtrack. I hated that song, "Hit 'Em High, Hit 'Em Low," and I still hate it. There's like a weird echo where I don't know who it was. It might be Busta Rhymes in the background. Like, when they do that, I'll hit him high, and then it goes high, and then he does it again on the low, and I hated that. I expected to hate this movie a lot, and was pleasantly surprised that it's just kind of like enjoyable, just straight down the middle family movie. Usually the corporatization stuff bothers me a lot more, and I don't know if I'm just really desensitized to it. But it didn't really bug me. Like you said, Liz, like this is a commercial basically for Michael Jordan being the perfect gentleman. Right. And then also kind of to bring back Looney Tunes into the popular. Yeah. So maybe we just have so much intrusion of like product placement and commercialization that it just didn't turn me off. Most of the reviews from the time that were negative were complaining about that specifically. This is nakedly a product placement kind of joint venture to just promote these two properties, Warner Brothers cartoons and Michael Jordan. I didn't think the Looney Tunes stuff was funny enough to kind of exist on its own. I wish they had been much weirder. I wish there was a lot more Wile E. Coyote, though I did appreciate that Yosemite Sam's plan is basically to pull a last Boy Scout and shoot a guy on the court, which I thought was great. I was offended by the CGI Wayne Knight. That was horrific. Absolutely insane. But other than that, most of the effects actually look pretty good. Like I thought that, and that might be because the animation looks cartoony. It's not trying to look real. So it helps with the suspension of disbelief that he's existing in the Looney Tunes land and there's cartoon shit happening. But it is not great, and I feel like people who really like this movie need to calm down and watch it as an adult, because it's fine, but it is not as good as you remember it being. I think this was really exciting to be a kid in the 90s and see this. But as an adult, it's like an interesting diversion. It's an interesting kind of production. It's interesting to see those effects, but it's not that enjoyable or funny. And it's kind of just a relic of that time period, which has some merit, but I'm going to kind of come down on the side of not as good as remembered. Soft no, as we say on the show.
Soft no. All right. I respect that.
Someone explained to me Bill Murray's hat, and also that scene where the doctor asked Patrick Ewing, hey, other than basketball, how's that dick working for you?
Yeah, right. Movie in the 1990s. I'm just asking.
In a child's film, like, oh, you getting it way up or just half up?
Oh my God.
All right, Bear Man. Nice to meet you.
So
Nice to meet you too. Sorry to leave early, but keep going in my absence.
Yeah. Okay, so Bear had to run to dinner with his girlfriend's family. He loves his girlfriend's family more than he loves us. That's okay. That's fine. We'll get through it. He left it with a soft no. But yeah, where are you guys? Where are you both at with it? Liz, I feel like you were leaning in a similar direction, but I don't want to presume.
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, the question of the hour. I think a soft no is one way to put it, but I think I would still, like, the way I was ranting about it to Aaron was like, I'm still gonna say yes, maybe a soft yes instead of a soft no, if that makes sense, because I feel like, sure, once I strip it of the nostalgia and once, I know better and I know all these things, and, upon rewatch after rewatch, you're going to just, it's going to lose a little bit of that luster. But I feel like 2020 has already robbed us of so much that, like, I can't just, give this up. I think it's fun. It's, I think it's supposed to be mindless, obviously. I think I don't know if we talked about our personal feelings towards Michael. Like, I also grew up as a fan. Like, even though I was always a Lakers fan, I feel like he was like the ultimate, athlete in my eyes, to the point where, again, I went on to play basketball at some point, had the number 23, definitely was never as good as Jordan, but it was always fun to play, right? So I think those feelings of affection, my like love for the 90s, which was my like, coming of age decade, I realized also looking back at the 90s that things weren't all rosy and peachy, but they felt that way, right? And so it's like, I think I'm lean into the nostalgia, the soundtrack. I mean, if I had to choose the movie or the soundtrack, I would probably choose the soundtrack.
I mean, it is a great soundtrack. I was thinking that as I watched it last night. And that was my first introduction to Fly Like an Eagle.
Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah, that was a cover. Like, that was Steve Miller Band did the original, which I didn't know till probably high school or maybe even college. But that was my first introduction to that song, and I was obsessed with that song. My dad really liked Seal, and so I would play it, and he'd be like, "All right, Seal, I like that." Like, he was really into it. But like,
we got Seal over across generations.
Yeah,
right?
man, Seal had a couple of great years, man.
Oh, he's amazing.
He is the black film soundtrack voice of the 1990s. Like, so many great hits came through him, But
so yes, I'm gonna go with
I think she's a yes. Okay. And for me, like, just a little context as to who I am, for me, I don't know if you see him back here, rest in peace, Kobe, but it's always been Michael and Kobe for me, as far as like, me being a big Lakers fan and Bulls fan. And again, growing up in the 1990s, you see somebody like MJ doing his thing on the court. You just want to be a part of that culture and that experience as a young kid. He represented that. He was my first NBA jersey. He was, I started following stats better because of Michael, because what he was doing at the time was so different. And then the intrigue of him retiring, abruptly, when I was still a kid, and being like, oh no, having something so cool taken away from you. And because of the sheer tragedy that he experienced. So it's just all these different elements that went into when I saw this movie at the time, and my mom saw it with me. We just felt good for Michael. We felt good for him overall because of the tragedy that he had experienced with losing his father and retiring. It was just cool to see him rise back up from all that. He was doing it actually in the NBA too when the film came out. So it was just, you have to be that good if you're going to be on a camera with Looney Tunes. Mm-hmm. But then also we talk about his wooden performance. He's doing that all versus a green screen, right? He's probably the only human on set, right? And what does that even look like? So just taking that all into account and just taking the crazy storytelling and low key scary because just they shut the NBA down in this movie. And this season, they also shut the NBA down as well.
Did you catch that? It's so fucking COVID. Like when he's like, what that scene in front of the Forum in Inglewood when he's like, listen, there will be no more NBA for the season. I was like, whoa.
I was triggered. I was so triggered because I was like, oh my God, like that actually happened this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it also was a box office smash, you know what I mean? Yeah. Made for the, what I think it was around a budget of 80. I think it grossed
230 worldwide.
Yeah. So that's not, hey, I mean.
96,
that's actually.
It was a hit. It was a hit. It opened at number one. It was a hit. I was going to ask because, again, I haven't watched The Last Dance yet, and I know I need to. How did Michael's dad die?
He was actually, people say it was a botched robbery attempt. He was shot in his car, and then his body was thrown over. This is what I didn't know. His body was thrown over a bridge near that town, and so he had gone like AWOL basically for a couple of days, and no one had heard from him.
Oh my God!
Yeah, from him, and then they had to look around. They saw that, and now there are those conspiracy theorists out there that believe that Michael's retirement was related to that, or it was his father's death was a result of some of Michael's gambling addictions, but those rumors have been, falsified and but
Jesus.
No matter what, very tragic, right? And
dude, so he was fucking murdered.
Yes.
By some. I had no idea. I assumed because in the beginning of the movie he's like, my father got to see my last game, and I assumed it was old age. I don't know why I assumed that because I hadn't. Man, that's crazy.
What happened? What was the time? When did his father get murdered, and then when did he do?
So he passed away in the summertime of 1993.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was Michael's first retirement.
Yeah. And so all that so they do dramatize actually really big events from his life, like his retirement,
baseball,
and so for Michael to even begin with that,
the self-deprecation.
I love this that scene with the pitcher. With
the catcher.
The catcher.
Dude, that is a funny scene. How he's like, I told you not to swing. I couldn't help it. Yeah.
I couldn't help it.
Like, and then the catcher just goes, "Hi, I understand. Hey, nice meeting you." Like, he's such a fan.
Right. And then like the fan service that even his teammates have too, where they're like, "Man, I strike out, it looks horrible, but when you strike out, it looks amazing." I found those elements funny and humorous, and then also just subtle moves with the filmmaking, like the basketball Jones montage with Barkley Ewing and Muggsy Bogues and LJ and Bradley, the physical comedy of that. Like again, the aforementioned Bear mentioned it before he got off the podcast, but a therapist asking about Pat Ewing's sex life is
it's amazing.
Like if you can get that on camera and you still maintain your tone, like, hey, let's go for it.
In rewatch, we also have been rewatching some older other Disney movies and stuff, and I feel like, I mean, maybe films do this still to a certain extent, but like those nuggets for the adults that fly over the kid's head, but once you rewatch it, you're like, wait, hold up.
Yeah.
7-year-old and there's like sex jokes in here.
I picked up on so many things this time around. Like, you remember when Lola, I think it's not when she kisses him, but when Lola's like, "Don't ever call me doll," and then she walks away and Bugs falls and he kind of like falls like a hard piece of wood.
Oh yeah, yes. I mean,
that is clearly a reference to an erection. Like, there is no doubt in my mind.
Yeah,
like
that's a nice.
It's funny, like there was a lot that I picked up on this time around, like like the fan service, like I mentioned earlier, but like the Wayne Knight's endorsement line, and Wayne Knight is so fucking good. He's just great in everything. He's a fucking treasure, a 90s treasure specifically.
He's the MVP of this film, I feel like, because I feel like we had to bring someone in there who was going to do a lot of the physical comedy and just go places, emotionally that maybe Michael couldn't go. And I think that was Wayne Knight. Wayne Knight, he again 90s, super 90s with Wayne Knight.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I agree.
I think I give it a soft yes, even with all that, considered, because, as we are storytellers as well. And, I do believe it holds a very special place in my heart. You know what I mean? So I think that kind of informs my decision, but it is a labor to get through. With the film, you do feel it going through the paces, and I found myself saying it should be an easier watch if I'm really, really, still into it, and it wasn't that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But when it hits those moments that I appreciated as a kid, then I can't help it. So
it works.
Yes, absolutely. But I have to get through those other moments where I'm like, okay, this is
right.
There goes Michael Jordan's trousers. They're oversized. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
They're so big, but I mean, but overall.
Even that makes me feel kind of nostalgic, though. Like, the way that, that was
era.
The way to dress in the 90s.
That whole just style, that whole culture, and that whole just experience. And like one of my favorite scenes it is when Charles Barkley gets like beaten by a girl playing basketball.
Which is also like,
commentary.
I was like, subtle misogyny, because it's like, he plays a group of girls and the girls beat him. Like, oh no.
Right. You're so right. That is such subtle misogyny of just the fact that, like, this is how bad it's gotten for him. He's going to go play them, and he's going to suck.
Yeah, like, that's hilarious, right? Like, if you're thinking about the 90s, which we are, obviously, at the moment, like, I feel like to a boy in the 90s, to say that you play like a girl, you run like a girl, you throw like a girl, you whatever like a girl, was like one of the biggest insults on the playground, right? If you think about it, like, I think, it was rampant. And I don't think, not to get too like cheesy, but it's like, obviously what we watch affects us and impacts us. Some of those things fly right over your head, but you're still taking them in, right? And so you're still seeing the images of Lola, of, of all these things. And so it is, that takes the fun out of it a little bit, but it's good to kind of be critical, because kids, should they be watching this stuff? I don't know.
And also, it's also just lazy storytelling and writing. Like,
Moron Mountain too. Like, I remember Moron was kind of like a bad, like, I don't think you would, it wasn't as bad as some other words, but like, I feel like if I said moron, my parents would probably be like, don't say that. You know, like, that's mean.
Yeah.
Like, what is this Moron Mountain place? Like, I made a joke to Aaron. I was like, maybe they just need to change the name, because who wants to go somewhere that's literally called Moron Mountain? And then,
You're 100% right, both of you. I love how Liz, your radar's up for this shit. Zoe, every time I watch a movie with Zoe where there's something, she'll kind of like do exactly what you did. Like, she'll give me a look like, did you see? And I'm like, yeah. I like, wow, it's fucking everywhere. Like, it's
especially in filmmaking, especially in like, that's one. And then people will attribute it to either the culture of it being casual, or just with the character archetype, the anti-hero who has to just humanize his female partner and all this.
People don't want stuff that they love to be challenged, and they don't want it to be changed. But the thing is that nobody's saying it has to change. Nobody's saying you can't like it. They're just saying, like, hey, pay attention, because this is in there, like. So, I don't know. But anyway, like with me with Space Jam, so you guys are both soft yeses. Yeah. Bear's a soft no. Before I give you my verdict, really quickly, I'll just say that I did see it in theaters as a kid. I had a Michael Jordan Toon Squad jersey. I had the soundtrack. Loved it. I was much more into sports as a kid than I am now. But I think, Aaron, you said it very well when you said that Michael Jordan was a representation of everybody wanting to be involved in his journey. And I definitely think that that's how I viewed him, because everyone loved him. I wanted to love him too. I was like, I want to be included. I want to be like in this conversation. Who is this guy? He's amazing. Like, I didn't understand basketball at all. I probably have been to like 3 games in my life, maybe 4. But with Michael Jordan, I remember he was a connector for everybody. Yeah. And I grew up in Connecticut. Everybody was Knicks fans. And I think I probably at one point even called myself a Knicks fan, but I loved Michael Jordan. Loved him.
Yeah.
And he was just like, he was an incredible player. And like, I remember my dad staying up late to watch his final game with the Bulls, not the one in 93, the one in 98 when he was sick.
Yeah.
And like the flu game. Yeah. And I remember I was too young, so he wouldn't let me stay up and watch it. But like the next day it was like front page of the paper. Yeah. And my dad was like telling me all about it. And he was like, it was unbelievable. It was like, you know, he had like the game winning shot and everything. And I remember there's that iconic picture of like him with a towel and like Scottie Pippen, like with his arm around or something. Yeah. And like, so you watch this movie and like, you can't ignore any of that. You definitely can't. But the thing is that as an adult now, I'm way less of a sports fan than I was as a kid. I don't despise sports by any means, but if I'm being honest, I don't really have a passion for them. Like, I think if professional sports went away tomorrow, I would probably not be affected, which I know sounds very weird to say.
Wow.
But I just,
they literally did go away.
I know.
So that's my point. Like, I was going to, yeah, it really didn't. Like, I was going to ask you guys, like, what did it feel like knowing like NBA's gone for months?
Like, I mean, my short answer is that we'll never forget that day.
We'll never forget that day.
Like,
exactly.
And also that made me, because you're right. Because when you have sports help you accept a lot, like time flying by. And you being a kid 1 second, and then you literally blink your eyes and you're an adult. And that's super scary. But when you have sports, you can always be like, well, this year, this team won this award. And that's why that year was, when it's all just like a collection of just lost time, right? And so in a way, sports kind of help to heal that, that life experience sort of.
Nice.
Right.
Very nice. And so when it went away, it's scary because you feel like life is going to go away. For me, the stakes were like that. You know what I mean? I felt when the onset of the pandemic happened, I really did feel like this was a pivotal time where things would change for all of us. Yeah. And my fear of my own safety, my own livelihood and mortality kind of came into play. I think a lot of people have been having those kind of conversations. And so, and pieces like this, and also The Last Dance, also take on more of a meaning.
Was appointment viewing for us.
Yeah, very, very much so. The pandemic, you look at those numbers that it did, and it was super. And that's because, like you said, Michael Jordan was just a different breed.
Yeah,
he was
a star, even because even athletes get that popular now. You know what I mean? Like,
it's different. I mean,
and not to give this even more like layers of like significant sports and Michael, but like,
oh please,
we talked a little bit about representation, obviously, when it comes to like women and these sort of like misogynistic things that kind of just flew under radars or were intentionally put there. And I feel like for us, like sports, especially basketball, for me, I'll speak more specifically, like the culture around basketball, the music, the shoes, the style, the act, and I think especially more recently, the activism and all of that around it just make it, this sort of oasis, this thing that I've always loved and always felt a part of, even though I obviously am not in the NBA or WNBA, but, it did give me purpose when I played basketball. And I think, if you think about even just like Black representation, like Michael Jordan as this hero, right? Like and obviously he was universal to a lot of people, but specifically to a Black kid growing up, seeing him doing the things that he was doing, making Space Jam, having, all these commercials, making money, succeeding and
winning,
and really just like changing the game is inspirational, whether it's to go play basketball or to go for your dream. So like not to get too cheesy, but I feel like that's, I think, what we also look at it in sports and the, positive and just like any representation of Black excellence, which, even in filmmaking is, we're still having these conversations about how can we get there. And I think with this film, right, you have Michael as the face of the film, but and I think we are all savvy consumers, if you look behind the scenes of who made this happen, who wrote it, who produced it, who directed it, unfortunately, there isn't Black representation there. So huge, in my opinion, like that's a big flaw against it in my mind.
That's one thing that I actually am looking forward to with Space Jam 2, is that Ryan Coogler is a writer and producer, Malcolm D. Lee is directing it, like
Terrence Nance was originally directing
Well,
it.
yeah,
Terrence Nance was the original.
We're big fans of Terrence Nance, so we're over here like release the Nance cut of Space Jam 2.
I know. Well, I think he only shot for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I feel like there's probably
I don't think
stuff still, but yeah,
he's super duper progressive and different vibe, and I think that they were more of a machine. Get this movie out.
I can see that not clicking. In my
Malcolm D. Lee is more of like a
steady
studio director, plays well with others.
Absolutely.
I did see in trivia related to this point, and I'll wrap it up, that I guess Spike Lee, they had been in talks with Spike Lee to have him do some work,
like a pass on the script or some touch-up. Yeah, Warner Brothers was upset with him over the way in which he got the money up for Malcolm X, and they held that against him.
In the original Space Jam. I thought you were talking about Space Jam 2, but yes, in the original, in the original, you're right. They were upset because I think because of the funding.
Yeah, he got outside
Malcolm X.
He
got outside money
and all these,
Yeah, I guess I don't really get how that's.
It's about a lot of.
Yeah, how's that bad? He saved the studio money, right?
Yeah.
People are still watching. I mean, it's like a classic film, and maybe it would.
Spike Lee is one of my favorite directors. But okay, so this brings me into my point about my verdict for Space Jam. So it's funny that you guys say you'll never forget the day that basketball went away, because I can't even tell you when that. I remember when it happened, but I was like, whoa, shit. But I was okay. And look, I don't dislike basketball. Look at my shirt that I'm wearing.
Yeah. Toy Story.
That's from the Lob. That's
Lob.
That's LeBron. That's Dwayne Wade. But look, it's Buzz and Woody. For anyone watching, I'm wearing a Toy Story shirt with the Lob on it.
Yeah.
So I like basketball enough because of what it represents to the culture, because of how recognizable it is. And I also love the relationships. I think the players are fucking hilarious. I think their charisma is off the charts. I love watching them in interviews. I love Chris Paul. I love, obviously, LeBron. But, I remember watching this interview with Chris Paul after a Clippers game once where he's the sportscaster was asking him how he played or whatever. And he was like, well, I busted my lip. Everyone knows I hate busting my lip. I just thought that was so self-effacing and just likable. So in terms of them as, people and as personalities, I'm fascinated with them. I'm fascinated with the relationships and with, again, with their charisma. I think they're by far the most interesting athletes. And I will say, as sports games, they're the ones that I find the most watchable. Watching a baseball game is difficult for me. Watching a football game, I cannot do it. I really don't like football. I did as a kid. Once again, I liked everything as a kid, but basically what basketball is, what you were saying it is to you, Aaron, that's what movies is to me. I will, when they close movie theaters and when they start delaying movies, that's when I'm like, holy shit. That's the stuff that I have a visceral reaction to of wow, that's going to video on demand now. Wow, that's not coming out for another year. And one of my favorite things to do every weekend is read the box office reports. And I haven't been able to do that since, March 5th or whatever.
You just see top streaming, and what does that even
mean? Exactly. And especially as aspiring filmmakers like us, it's oh my God, what does this mean for our first movies? Are they are they just not gonna go to theaters? Wow, shit, okay. But anyway, I definitely appreciated the wit in this movie. There's an amusing self-awareness and a lot of amusing moments with it, which I did appreciate. But I can't call it a good film. I think it lacks basic things needed for a good film. There's no character development, and there's no themes. It's funny. I was talking to my friend on the phone my old roommate Oren, before I came on the podcast, and I was talking to him about it because he loves Space Jam. He's a huge basketball fan. And he was like, I think the movie is about Michael Jordan learning to love basketball again and learning to accept it again. That's definitely what it's about. And I was like, I think you're right. I think that makes a lot of sense, but I didn't get that from what I watched. I got that from you saying it.
Yeah.
But I think it makes total sense because it's there's the press conference of him saying my dad got to see my final game. And then he, throughout the movie, he's like, I don't play basketball anymore. Yep. But then he, he accepts it pretty quickly when the Monstars come in or whatever. But I think that makes sense in terms of that's what the movie's about. But and maybe, look, I think my expectations were too high because I hadn't seen it in probably since I don't think I had seen it since like 97, since I was a kid.
Oh wow.
And I remember seeing it in theaters and then like watching it on TV or whatever. But I remember like loving it as a kid. And I think over the years, so many of my friends that are into sports just talked the movie up. Like, oh, it's the fucking best. You got to watch it. You know, like people wear merchandise from the movie and whatever. Like, it's still very in and fashionable. And I know that this is not a movie that necessarily lives and dies by things like character development and theme and, you know, and story and plot. Yeah. But like, the wittiness and the humor is not enough for me. It's not good enough for me it's not good enough to compensate for the lack of those other things. And I understand if you like this as an adult, if you're like a big sports fan and a basketball fan. And like I said, I'm a casual fan at best. So it doesn't have that same weight for me personally. So at the end of the day, I really think it's all about taste. So ultimately, I appreciated the movie more than I liked it. And for me personally, it's a soft no. It's definitely not a hard no. I definitely don't think it's a dumb movie. I don't think I was watching there pulling my hair out, but I have to be honest with myself and say that I didn't fully enjoy watching it as an adult. I chuckled at parts and I was like, that's clever. I like that. Like I took notes and was like, I love that. That's funny. But ultimately, as a whole, I was just like, like I don't see a reason that I'm really going to want to watch this again and again.
Right. Yeah.
The replay. The replay value of it all, even for us. I mean, and I love the line between a soft yes and a soft no, right? Like there is that line there. It's a very fine line. And I think that's what I love about the show is that it gives us all an opportunity to project onto these things that we grew up with, whatever we're going through at the moment, whatever currently we're living through. And it's giving us an opportunity to view things with a different gaze. And I think that's so important overall within any art form or viewing of medium is like who is looking at it, who's viewing it, and what are they bringing to it. And I think we all bring so much different, but there are certain things like, if they would have had that in the movie where Michael Jordan can just say the line, like, I love basketball again, or I appreciate that. That's so important for his character's transformation. Yeah. But we don't get that. We don't get that. Know. We get everything else you're hit over the head with, but like thematically speaking, this man coming back to love the thing that has brought so much to his life, that's an important character beat that we're kind of missing in the film. So I definitely
I think it's beautiful. Like, and that's the thing is that like, and he's still, I know it ends with him playing with the Bulls again, but it's like it's like, you have a baseball game in 5 minutes. I think it would have been like more powerful if he was like, fuck that, I know where I'm going. And then they go to like the Bulls, you know?
Well, I think, we're all kind of saying the same thing in that, in general, any film, any album, any, TV show, yes, it's a matter of taste. Obviously, there's certain fundamentals that, we're always going to look to. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're projecting on these things and there's nothing, concrete about, or, it's not a tangible thing, this nostalgia we have for it, this like, joy that we get from it that in adulthood and in 2020 especially feels really sacred. The fact that it is just like, yes, it's a little, we could say it's a little dumb. There's parts where you're like, okay, this is crazy. But it's, it's a kid's film. And I do feel like it's something that I would want, younger siblings to watch and future generations, just because it's like, it's fun. Like there is an inspiring aspect to it. I thought the placebo thing was really like, that touched me, that Michael's idea of like secret water that you like drink, and
that was sweet.
Think, like,
I agree. Like you guys had it in you all along. That was sweet. I agree.
Like, so it's like you can kind of extrapolate those things, but you're right. It's not. I think at the end of the day, we know too much, and we know how these things come about. And I mean, a lot of my job is literally watching stuff and saying I like it, I don't like it. But yeah, it's subjective. At the end of the day, it's subjective, and there's no magic formula to it all. But it has enough of the magical things that we look for.
Because I think it's so much about, as you said, Liz, subjectivity, like about how it makes you feel. I rewatched Marriage Story the other night, and Zoe hasn't seen it, and I was like, can we watch it this weekend so you can see it? Like, I want to watch it again immediately. Like,
That's funny, because Aaron saw Marriage Story on his own,
in the theaters,
had his own like emotional experience with it, wanted to watch it with me. I'm curious to hear how it goes with Zoe, but I wasn't as blown away as you.
But here's the thing. I totally get it.
I kind of was touched in the theater because
Yeah,
I mean, you already know
I'm
on board if I'm seeing a Netflix film in a theater. Like, what am I doing?
Me too.
Which, like, you
saw it in theater. Did you go to the Vista?
I did.
Dude, me too.
We were crying there. I got the whole, they give you like the whole card.
The poster. I got the post, and it was on 35 millimeter.
Yeah, it was.
It was amazing. It looked great, and like, dude, no, that was it's great. My favorite movie of his is The Squid and the Whale. You guys should check that one out if you haven't seen it.
I came home and I
fucking funny.
Yeah.
Before I start recording, is there anything else that you guys want to plug? Anything you're working on?
I think recently I was featured on Coverfly. I'm one of their endorsed talents at the moment, and so that's led to a lot of great conversations with different.
That's awesome. Can you send a link? Can you send a link to that so I can post it with this episode?
I can. I actually can send you my webpage, and I think I have something.
Like a profile.
There's a little profile where I have like a little comment from someone, but that's been fun. Just identifying new opportunities via that, and Liz is busy
work, but it's been I mean, obviously it's been a crazy year for everybody, especially in both development and production. So just seeing both sides, the impact of COVID, and we're all still kind of navigating, seeing where this is going to go, but something are back up on their feet, and we're some of our production companies are back in production, so that's exciting.
That's great.
And I'm also doing like a Women in Film Insight Fellowship. I mean, this is an interesting year for fellowships, right? Because it's like
that's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you. It's been awesome. And then one of the shorts I did for Film Independent that I was the creative exec on has been getting into some festivals, and is in the HBO short film competition at ABFF, which is American Black Film Festival.
Black Boy Joy is the name of the film.
And it was at the NAACP convention earlier this week, screened with some other.
I've heard about that film.
Yeah.
Maybe from you, but I know I've seen posters of it and pictures on social media.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I also saw something else you posted on social media. Something with someone named W. Kamau Bell.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Not to try and put you on the spot, but I just think that's a really cool thing. If you want to talk
really
about it.
Because it was or is the first show that I worked on since I started at CNN in October. So to kind of be with it through the whole process, navigating COVID, to see it get on air, and it's been doing great work in terms of people watching it and responding to it. So
it's awesome.
Check it out. It's on Sunday nights at 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern, and it's all about race and identity, which has always been timely, but a lot of the topics, are especially timely. The episode that was on Sunday was about public schools and education, which obviously there's been a lot of conversations around with COVID and how kids go back to school. The first episode was about white supremacy. There's an upcoming episode about reparations. So we're going for it. So
this is the year. This is the year.
Yeah, it's fun, and I'm excited to see it on air. So it's been.
That's awesome. Just so our listeners know, what's the show called?
United Shades of America, and it's on CNN. You can also see it on the CNN On Demand app, and it will eventually live on HBO Max. And the previous seasons are all on HBO Max if you want to catch up.
United Shades of America. That's awesome, Liz. Yeah, that's huge. And you guys are the best. Thank you for coming on. But you know what? I know you have to go to your next call, but we're gonna have you back on for an album or something.
We would love that. I mean, an album, film, something. A show, series. We love the conceit of the series.
Thank you. Yeah.
We love you and Bear as host, and
we can have you on for food too. We can all eat some some childhood treat. We can discuss if it's
Lunchables.
Yeah, Lunchables is good. We want to do that one. We did Happy Meals.
Yeah.
In an earlier episode.
Did you?
And that. What's funny is we did say they were still good, but for adults. But for adults, not for kids. It's too much sodium. But for adults, if you're an adult and you're craving McDonald's, go get a Happy Meal. You will be fine. You will be sated. That is more than enough junk.
That's hilarious.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
We're going on our way to McDonald's right now.
Well, Anyways, everybody, thank you for listening. You can check us out, stillgoodshow.com. You can shoot us an email, stillgoodshow@gmail.com. You can yell at me for not liking Space Jam or not thinking it's still good. You can send us what you thought of it. You can send us a topic idea if you'd like. Instagram at stillgoodshow. Next week, we are discussing Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Neither Bear nor I have ever watched an episode.
Wow.
So you're doing the series and not the film?
We're doing the series. We're doing a select specific few episodes. My friend Rihanna Sorensen, who I worked with at Paramount, is coming on. She's a big Buffy fan. And so she gave us like 5 episodes. Watch these ones.
Okay.
And so then we're gonna discuss
Is
that
the
one.
musical in there? I know they had a musical episode.
I think one of the ones she gave us was the musical episode. Yeah. And yeah, that'll be fun. But anyways, everybody, thank you for listening. Aaron and Liz, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
We'll have you again soon.
Stay safe and well. Stay safe and well.
We'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.